it's Delina with Arizona Desert Gems. Today we're going to be talking about cuff bracelets, where they should fit, how to put them on, and a few tips for making and sizing them, and then a couple fun facts thrown around. So stick around, we're going to get started. These are two of the very first bracelets I ever made. This is one of my personal cuff bracelets that I made in a class with Eva Sherman, and she's a great instructor, so if you ever get a chance, I highly recommend you training with her. So you can see on the back that it fits with an opening in the gap. It's fitting behind my wrist bone, not down on my hand like a bangle bracelet, or even sometimes beaded or chain bracelets will fit and come down to this point. But with cuffs, we always want to keep them behind the wrist bone. There's a couple problems with this bracelet, and I'll tell you about those later. The first bracelet I ever made is this one here. And I didn't know much about sizing, so I just went off of what someone else told me. And what you can see is it's way, way too big for me. Now, it doesn't come off, so that's fine. I can still wear it, but it's not an actual proper fit. How to get that perfect fit? You want to take a measuring tape, or maybe if you don't have one, you can use a strip of fabric or a strip of paper and then lay that out against a ruler. Again, we want to be measuring from the inside of the wrist, behind the wrist bone, to get your exact measurement. So here I'm about 6 1/4 inches right now. It's not too tight, it's not too loose, that cuff's not going to go anywhere. Fun fact though, is children by the age of about 5 have the same wrist size as an adult female. It's about size 6. So fun fact about cuff bracelets is that in Greek and Roman times, they were actually symbols of status and talismans of protection. So you might want to think about that as you're wearing your cuff bracelets. Now, if you're a maker and you're wondering how big of gap to leave, most people are recommending anywhere from 3/4 to 1.5 inches. That's a fairly large range for a gap. And the things to consider is how big is your actual bracelet? So in this bracelet, the gap is just barely over 1 inch. And for my wrist, that's 6 1/4, the gap is very, very comfortable. However, with this larger bracelet, this one has a gap of about 1.5. And I find that even sometimes for men, that gap is too small for them. So when you're making much larger bracelets, you need to make the gap larger overall. Now, I said that there was a problem with this bracelet, and I'll show you that right now, because it has the 1.5 inch gap. But because it is so much smaller, my wrist is so much smaller, what happens is the gap is actually just a little bit too big for my wrist. If you get that gap too big, it's going to slide and fall off when the person turns their arm over. The other thing to think about is the shape of the bracelets. My wrist tends to be very flat oval. So you can see this is more of a round oval just because of the shape and size of the top of the cuff. But we want to think about, is the person's wrist a flat oval, very, very skinny here, or are they a much more rounded oval? So all things to consider when you're making your bracelets. Hit like and subscribe, and thanks for being here today. As always, happy creating.